Hello, lovely beings. I hope you are well and wonderful. I have with me on this venture of today two lovely beings, Dayvid from Down the Rabbit Hole and Deborah from Paranormal Paradigma. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hey.
So I have asked them to join me today specifically because they can offer information on an aspect of life and thinking that I cannot, which is what is it like to be an atheist? And I know what you probably are thinking. Why are you doing this weird episode? But I know that there's somebody out there who will be able to benefit from this information. Why I've asked these two wonderful people to come on and talk about their life experience. So, Dayvid and Deborah's background differ extremely in how they became atheists. So, Deborah, I'm actually going to start with you because yours was more of an origin story.
Mhm. Okay. So with me, I grew up in a very interesting household. My mom was Roman Catholic and also sort of dabbled in a little bit of Santeria, which is an Afro-Cuban religion. And my father was the full-out atheist person in the home. And then as far as my family goes, I was also exposed to just different other religions. So my first cousins, my mom's sister, converted to Islam, so I grew up with cousins that were Muslim. I also had a grandma who was like very spiritual and not as religious, just more spiritual. She believed in God. I had another one who was Christian. So I just was exposed to a lot of different religions that while I was growing up, we didn't really talk a lot about religion in the house. It was just sort of like, okay, my mom said that there was a God. My dad said it wasn't. There was always this sort of like, pool. And then I was always kind of in the middle. I think for a little bit, I did believe in God when I was little, just because everybody sort of talked to me about it, at least the women in my life. But sometime around adolescence, I had a lot of things start to happen, a lot of changes that started to happen, especially in the home. And for me, it just started to really change the way that I saw, this all great, wonderful being that's supposed to exist. And I started to lose faith in God and really sort of side with my father in this idea that nothing exists. And it wasn't until um, maybe my early 20s that I really just went full hard, like late teens, early 20s. I went full into atheism. I read a book that sort of just solidified it for me, and spent all of my my decade, my 20s, completely as a non-believer and an atheist. So yeah, I spent all of my 20s as a non-believer, as an atheist, and I never kind of doubted, like once I started to believe in nothing, I just sort of felt like that's just the way that life was. And I didn't really have anything start to look differently until my father passed away, which was kind of the irony of all this, because it wasn't until my father, the atheist, passed away that I actually felt something and made me question whether or not something else exists, because I felt him. It's like I felt him come to me when he died. And
How old were
at
you,
first
Deborah?
I was 29. I was 29 years old. So the last leg of my 20s. And he passed away suddenly, so it wasn't anything that we were expecting. And that night that he passed, I talked to him the day before, and everything seemed fine. It was a week before Father's Day. We were going to make plans. I was in Orlando that weekend with my sister. So we were gonna make plans, and we just hung up. We said, "I love you. Talk to you later, Dad. We'll see each other next weekend." And then around midnight that night, I woke up startled and kind of worried about my father. And I kind of just brushed it off because, again, I didn't believe in anything. So when I felt this overwhelming, feeling of like some sort of looming danger or doom, I was just like, this is just me. I'm just worried. My father is older. And I just sort of like chucked it off to like some sort of psychological manifestation of, concern or worry or whatnot, until 2 hours later, I got the call that, they found my father had passed in the bathroom where he lived. And so that, I think, triggered a whole new, like, it just woke up something in me. It took me a while to settle into the idea that maybe there was something else. It took me a while to settle into the idea that maybe it was my father that came to visit me and warned me or wanted to say goodbye, sort of thing. But I can definitely say that that event and everything else that happened afterwards, it was the big like awakening that I feel that life was waiting for me to have, or like I needed for me to sort of kind of come out of this atheist belief system that I had. And ever since then, I've been what I am now. I don't necessarily consider myself religious because I'm not. I don't say that I'm a believer in God in the sense of like, the Bible and the Christian God. But I don't feel comfortable saying that I'm an atheist just because I don't know what exactly exists. But I know something exists. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's really agnostic, but whatever it is, I'm definitely spiritual. I'm definitely more in tune with myself and the universe. And I'm not the same person at all. Whoever I was at 29 is gone by now. So it's been a big learning and growing process, and sort of this whole spiritual awakening, dark night of the soul, all that stuff that they talk about, definitely went through it. And now I am here.
And nothing happens for no reason. I mean, there's a purpose to everything. And I find it a little interesting that it happened when you were 29, right towards the end of your Saturn return. So for those of you who know astrology, your Saturn return usually happens between the ages of 28 and 30. Then again, 58 to 60. But it really is a time, it can be a time of extreme slowdown where everything's slowed down so that you get the lesson, but you come out of your Saturn return a completely different person as who you went into it as. So that's really beautiful. Now, David, you have kind of the opposite. And your story, I'm not gonna lie, hun, when you and I first talked, you had me cracking up with your story. I'm not laughing at you, but the irony
You're
of
laughing
it,
with me, right? You're
of
laughing.
course. I mean, the irony of it is hilarious. So please share with everyone, your backstory.
So I was raised Catholic, and my parents, I feel like it, now that I am where I'm at, it felt like indoctrination. Obviously, it's indoctrination because I was raised from birth to be Catholic, right? And so I don't blame my parents. I'm not saying that, because they were indoctrinated, and so were their parents, and so on and so forth. And that's how this spreads. And that's why they want you to have a lot of kids, have as many kids as possible, so that you can spread this around. Well, I grew up, and I would take these little classes. They're called CCD classes at my church, and it's a bunch of kids with a priest or a nun or whatever. And I would always ask these questions. And for example, one of these priests actually said that animals don't have souls, and I was just blown away by thinking that my dog doesn't have a soul. Are you kidding me? It's alive. How can it not? What do you mean? And I asked about that, and he just was adamant that they don't have souls. Only people have souls. And I thought, that's ridiculous. I don't believe this guy, you know? And there was another time I asked a question that why is Catholicism the best religion? Why do you think it's the best religion? Tell me about that. And the nun told me that it's the best because it's the oldest, okay? And that's it. And yeah, come to find out, clearly not the oldest religion. Hello.
It's
Not
not.
that, no,
I
not that that would make it any better than any other one. So,
It wouldn't, but also for the record, everything has a soul.
yes, thank you. That's what I believe for sure.
Yeah.
And
But I
so
digress. I'm working on my issues with the Catholic Church. I fully admit that.
I did have a few dreams as a kid growing up, and one was very puzzling. It was an image of Jesus Christ in my face. Like everywhere I looked, it was his face. Like in like a, you know, those curved TVs that they
Yeah.
have these days. So that's what it was like. But I was like right here, everywhere I looked, he was looking right at me. It was the weirdest dream ever. And he was telling me, "You're gonna go to hell if you continue down the path you're going." As you can see behind me, I'm already there. I'm just kidding.
Oh my God.
No, it's just that. And I remember waking up and I was crying because I was so afraid. And I really believe the devil and hell and all that stuff. I did research on that, and I don't believe in that at all.
Well, back then though, did you believe it?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And
So
so,
you were like 100% that Catholic.
yeah,
Dipped down into all of it from
mhm,
infancy on up. You were a very
absolutely.
devout believer in your 20s as well.
Yeah,
You still go to mass every
mhm.
week and
Not every week. We
okay.
weren't, I wasn't that devout, but I
Okay.
believed, I believed, I believed. And, you know, the thing about, and I'm kind of envious of Deborah because the thing about being raised that way, it's like you have God in your brain or on your mind. God is always in there with you. And it's like he's watching everything. He's telling you, you should have done that. You're being bad. Or, you did good there. That's great. And I didn't like it. I didn't like it because I didn't feel like I was free. I just had this God watching me all the time. And when I finally decided that I was done with that, it was so freeing and beautiful. But anyway, before I get there, um,
Yeah,
I
because
woke
that's
up,
the
I told
part
my
you got to
parents,
tell.
yeah, I got up, I told my parents about this dream with Jesus, and they were so joyous and yes, and you have to be a good boy and all this. And so, I mean, I grew up like that. I thought that way. And I started having debates with my friends about, the stories in the Bible and how I believe that they're true. And even though without even really knowing the fullness of the story, um, and I'm a very scientific person. So, and Deborah knows this. I use science for a lot of stuff. I mean, I need facts. I need to know what the facts are before I make a decision. Science
Mhm.
is really good for helping you with that, but it doesn't give you all the answers, right? So
Right.
I wanted to take my religion and my scientific mind and mesh the two. I wanted to find the Noah's Ark. I wanted to, because if I found that, then it's real. All of it's real, right? So I decided I'm going to read the book from cover to cover. And I started with the Old Testament.
The
And
Bible for reference, the
yes,
book.
the Old Testament Bible. There's a New Testament. I read that too. But the old one was so freaking bizarre because when you go to church, they will quote scriptures and they will pick and choose what to say. You will never hear the other stuff until you go and read it yourself. And I'll give you an example of one that really bothered the hell out of me. There was a war, and God chose one side, right, to defeat the other side. So when they defeated the other side, God told the winners that they must get rid of the rest of the people of that side,
Mhm.
meaning, men, women, and children, and that they should grab the babies by the feet and smash their heads against rocks.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I could not believe that a God would say something like that to people. That's clearly not written
Especially
by a
the
God.
God who created all of those people.
Exactly. Why would he drown everyone?
The math ain't math.
It don't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. So I started to read into this, and I started to study, and I went into book after book after book after book. And then I got to the New Testament. So
Much better. Much better reading.
Much better. And Jesus, let me say this about Jesus. He is awesome if he exists, if he ever existed. I don't think that he did, but hey, that's just me. Because I look at like if you look at the stats, right? Uh, born of a virgin birth, uh, December 25th birthday. He disappears at 13, reappears at 30, that kind of stuff. That's all been done already before by other gods. If you look at other gods, you'll find the same stats. It's almost like someone said, let's make this guy, and I'm going to take all these things and put them in here. And they did a great job with the story. It's an awesome story. I love Jesus and his story. It's awesome. And that was the last thing I was holding on to before I finally realized to me. And I don't mean to, I'm not trying to change anyone's mind. If religion helps you in your life, and I think they do some good things. I'm not saying they do some bad things too, but the good things are always great. And if it helps people, that's wonderful. And I'm all for that. I'm not trying to change anyone's mind. But for me, once I started to really research it, I couldn't make sense of it. I could not prove any of it. It's all stories, And so go ahead.
So I'm sorry. I'm laughing. I'll get into how I met you momentarily, David, and why I'm laughing so hard, because I'm not gonna lie, I get some really random contacts doing what I do, and I love them because each one's so different. And yours was one of those moments where I was like, I'm sorry, wait, you were devoutly Catholic and then you read the Bible front to back and then you became an atheist.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Which okay. Like
I started
normally
seeing
normally it goes the other way, but like I said, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you because it's so back asswards from how things normally work when it comes to religion. And you brought up a couple great points, and I am very, very public that I am not a religious person. I respect religion. I think religion is wonderful for people that it helps. And I feel like there's a lot of people that need it because who they would be and the actions they would take if they didn't have religion would be awful. So it definitely serves a purpose. It's just the reasons why we have laws, and not everyone knows all of the laws, but in general, we kind of know, what not to do, if you will. Some people just need to carry around the book with them a little more than others. In regards to Jesus, I agree with you, actually. I'm a huge lover of Jesus. I also understand, though, that Jesus has existed in many other forms. And if you look at every single culture and religion that we know of, Mayan and Aztecs included in that, you will see that all of them have the martyred son of God. All of them across the board. And, if someone wants a quick breakdown of what you were referring to, David, like with the date and the sun and the 3 days, I recommend the movie Zeitgeist. The first 20 minutes does a wonderful job of breaking all of that down, of all of the different deities and different religions that came before. And you got to remember that, the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, they're all taking all of these old belief systems and religions, and they're all kind of mashing them together to make something, and then they went forward from there. So there are a lot of things that, for instance, you were saying in the Old Testament don't add up. And I've stated that very, very clearly myself, that the Old Testament is not the same God that I believe created everything, because it doesn't make sense to me that if you created everything, A, why are you killing some of the people and not others? And B, why do you need me to kill one of your creations to sacrifice to you to make you feel better? That makes no sense to me. The all omnipotent great divine doesn't require that. That's That's a lower G God, not a big G God. I digress. Back to atheism and why I had you on. So, very rarely do I get an opportunity to talk to two people who are friends as well as great at public speaking in regards to what it was like to be an atheist. So, Dayvid, obviously, you're slowly but surely kind of coming out of atheism. So, you're still a little more in that camp versus Deborah, who's had a little while to definitely fly into this spiritual chicken coop and get her feet wet. So, one of the main questions I have for both of you is when you were knee deep in, I believe in nothing, right? Complete atheist, denial of God, denial of any spirituality, anything. What did that feel like mentally? Like when, and I don't just mean on a day-to-day basis, because, that probably all depends on what the day was and what it brought. But when times got tough, when things got hard, and the average person who believes in something would chalk it up to, this is, spirit teaching me a lesson. What do I need to learn and grow or heal from this? Or from some people saying, God's testing me, or other people praying to God, God, can you get me out of this? Whatever the case may be. What did you two do in those times?
Go ahead.
Okay. Honestly, I think that's where my anxiety came from. Because I felt a huge responsibility to fix my own shit. So for me, it was just I was just very like, this is dependent on me. I'm the person who can create my future. I'm the one who has the reins, so to speak, of my life and of my destiny. There is no God. Nobody's going to come and save me. I can only save myself. So I got to make this right. And so there was just a lot of pressure for me to constantly check myself and make sure that I was doing everything, dotting my I's, crossing my T's, and things like that, so that when things went bad, so to speak, I didn't feel like it was completely my fault. Or if it was my fault, then I could be like, okay, well, where did I mess up? So it was just like an overwhelming sense of responsibility and just a lot of like, I don't know. I guess like a lot of the big onus is on me. Like nobody's gonna fix me. Nobody's gonna help me. There isn't anything. It's up to me. And I was very in my, what people would term now, my masculine. And so that there was no rest. There was no time to like, chill out or think about it. It was just, you got to fix it. I got to do it, take action, plan, organize. And it was just like life was just constantly running. And I never really thought about, oh, what does this mean? Or why does this happen? It was just very like simple for me. Like this happened because I did this and now I got to fix it. Now, blah, 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 blah. So it just felt like an overwhelming sense of responsibility. And I'm like now absolutely sure that's where my general anxiety disorder developed. So
Everyone else in the world. There's a lot of other factors to anxiety.
I know.
But it is interesting that you bring up accountability because, there is no delicate way for me to say this. So I'm just going to do it with my lovely bluntness and directness that I sometimes get. Something that I feel is missing from a huge part of the spiritual community and also religious community as well is personal accountability and spiritual accountability. And, I can't remember if I sent it to you, but there was this really funny reel on Instagram where this guy is mocking people who take no spiritual accountability whatsoever. And he basically at the end says, I did ayahuasca and now I have no spiritual or personal accountability.
Oh,
And it's hilarious to me because I hear a ton of that.
that's sad.
And And it is sad for a multitude of reasons, because unfortunately, people who don't understand that, you know, in your spiritual practice, in your religious practice, in your day-to-day practice, with you just being a normal average person in this life doing all your mundane human things, we all have to take responsibility and accountability for our actions and for what comes of that. Like, whether you want to call it karma or not, but we always have a part to play. And there's a lot of people who like to give that up for, oh, spirit, or, oh, religion, I'm allowed to do this because, or just day to day, they don't want to deal with it. And so it's interesting that as an atheist, you felt a more profound responsibility, self-responsibility, which is also really amazing because you were in your 20s doing that as well. And let's face it, not everyone in their 20s is taking responsibility and accountability for their actions. So Dayvid, what about with you during this time frame? Obviously, you were a little bit older, when you came to this point, but at that point where you had just this total mental and spiritual kind of shut off, when times got bad, when times got tough, and your normal inclination, being that you were raised Catholic, would be like to pray the rosary or go to church, what did you end up doing and how did it feel?
Well, I can say that starting off, I know what you're talking about when you're saying like giving it up, like give it up to God. That's what they would tell you. Just he'll handle it. Don't worry about it. It's gonna be fine. And then nothing gets fixed, right? Because you gave it to God and he didn't care apparently. So I mean, I remember that. Or you would pray and that would fix things, and of course that didn't work. But I remember once I scraped off God from me, I basically I resonate with what Deborah was saying, because I did have to do it myself now. I didn't have anything to couldn't give it to anybody, couldn't pray about it. I had to take care of it myself. And I found that, it works. If you try to handle it yourself, if you try to, and give yourself credit too. You don't give it to God or whatever. Give yourself credit because you're the one who did it. So yeah, it was freeing for me. I felt free. I felt like now I can do this stuff. What the hell was I doing before? This is not right. I should be able to do this myself. And it was a very freeing feeling. I embraced it.
So knowing that there are people on both ends of the spectrum, right? From atheist to full spiritual religious, on down the gamut in belief, who don't take personal accountability or responsibility. Because there are some atheists who believe in chaos theory, which is, well, why should I care about anything? Because it's all chaotic and there's no order to anything, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen. So YOLO. And then you have, I love my young references, right? Yay, no one. And then you have people on the other side of things where, oh, God's got it. It's predestined. Spirit, take the wheel. Jesus, take the wheel. Everybody take the wheel other than me, because hands off, right? Everyone else is going to fix it but me. And those are both ends of the spectrum. And obviously, I and both of you fit very much in the middle, which is personal accountability, taking responsibility. What would you say to someone on either ends of those spectrums who takes no personal accountability or responsibility?
I don't say anything because, I generally do not deal with those people. They're
I almost just spit out my water. I'm sorry. I should not have taken a drink knowing you were going to respond.
I mean, do you deal with it? I don't, if I come across someone who's like that, I don't try to dispel their belief system. That's not what I'm about. I'm not a militant, or I'm not even an atheist anymore, just to be clear.
Yeah.
I'm an agnostic, but I don't want to destroy anyone's belief system. If that's how they want to do it, that's fine. You do you, I'm going to do me, and it's not going to be the same. That's basically how I approach it.
I agree with David to a certain point. So, but that's also because I have an educator in me and a teacher. So like I'm just like naturally inclined to be like, but look at the other side of the story. So this is just me. But I am the same way. I try not to be very opinionated when it comes to people like, sharing their beliefs. And if they are at either extreme, I'm going to listen to them and I'm going to understand them, because I get it. Now, if I'm asked, like, what do I think? And they ask me, my response is, for the really, really religious people, I'm going to say, well, in the Bible, it says you reap what you sow. So, I mean, I don't know how else to tell you that. It's in your book. So if you don't want to, like, acknowledge it, then I think that you're skipping over a very big life lesson. And then for like the non-believers, I'm just gonna be like, so then what about cause and effect? There's science to this. Everything that has there is an effect, there's cause and effect. Everything that has an action has a reaction. So what do you have to say about that? And then question that and sort of go into that, because I can talk about both. Like I am, I'm very open and I understand the laws of both. So to me, it's just like, check yourself. You don't have to necessarily believe that if you're an atheist, that God is the one that holds the reins. Well, then if you believe in science and you understand that things have a cause and effect and action or reaction, so why aren't you taking accountability? And then if you're religious, I'm going to be like, well, then what do you think about the passage about what you reap, what you sow? That is literally like one of the most defining lessons in the Bible. So what is happening that you're just kind of like overlooking that very important lesson? And then just, have a discussion. But I don't expect to change anybody's mind, because people will be people, but at least, give them some food for thought.
I love it when they tattoo themselves and it's like scripture. That's my favorite.
Oh yeah.
That's my
Especially
favorite.
when it's Leviticus that says
Leviticus,
never to tattoo.
Are they wearing two different fabrics? Oh my goodness, you can't do that. That's against the Bible. Can't do it.
So there's a couple things that both of you said that I wanted to touch on, because I knew this discourse between us was just more than, okay, you were an atheist. How's that work for you? Point number one, how to have an average conversation or a discourse with anybody with a possible opposing belief. Number one is listen, which you both clearly said. Like, I'm not here to convert anybody. I'm not here on a mission, nor am I. I mean, first of all, I have a very small YouTube channel. And if you find yourself here and you feel lost, simply click stop and go and find your way to wherever you're supposed to be. That being said, I also agree with you, Deborah, and in what you said of bringing a little bit of rationale to the conversation as well. There's this quote that I think Dr. Phil says a lot, and it goes, how's that working for you?
Yeah.
So, when people come to me, and, I get all sorts of amazing, wonderful people with all sorts of different situations. And, I have to kind of gauge what level of honesty and directness does the person need or want. And sometimes what a person wants isn't what they need. Sometimes you have to be really, really direct and blunt, because you've told them something 18,000 times and now you're just getting annoyed because they keep asking you the why question. And I don't like repeating myself. I feel like that's a waste of time. But it is a good question when someone comes like, wow, my life is spiraling completely out of control, all by my own cruddy choices that I've made. I wonder what could be the problem. And it's like,
There's a mirror.
look in the mirror. You might be the issue. And being self-aware is way more difficult, and it's mind-blowing to me, to be perfectly honest. It is so hard in today's society. And I don't, obviously I haven't lived forever in this body, but I've known that this could be an issue. And, like we hear about it all the time, right? I just didn't understand that people who look like they got it all together can be so completely and utterly, completely unaware of themselves and their own actions and behaviors. And that is almost terrifying to me.
Yeah.
Okay. Next point was something you said in regards to you reap what you sow.
Mm.
And that brings in the concept of karma. Mm-hmm. And this has been on my mind to figure out a way to talk about this without sounding preachy and just going on a total rant, but we're here, so pull up a chair. Guess I'm doing this today. So there's this thing that I've been hearing for some years now in regards to the whoever they are, this magical they, that they, quote unquote, will tell you in advance what they're going to do via movies or disclosure or songs or whatever it is. Again, this magical they. Mm-hmm. They're going to tell you what, quote unquote, they're going to do, because that's how they magically shirk karma, is if they announce it in advance. I know, girl, you're giving me the same look. The first time I heard this, I was like, I'm sorry, what? There's this thought process out there that this magical they is telling us in advance what they are going to do in order to shirk all karmic law. Because by telling us in advance, they therefore don't have to take any karma. I can tell you with complete and utter sincerity and knowledge, that is complete bull turds. Okay? I try not to swear, but I want to say some words right now. Karma applies the same rules across the board. So, first of all, that is a fallacy, and just stop it. If there's a magical they, and they are putting stuff out in movies, songs, whatever way they're putting things out, it's probably to prep you, get you ready, and get you used to an idea before it happens, and also to see how it's received before something major rolls out, right? And then there's just entertainment for entertainment's value. And there are trends. So if you look at movies, for instance, every year there seems to be like a trend. Like one year it's dinosaurs. Everything is dinosaurs, whether it's scary, happy, sad, drama, whatever. The next year it's horror movies and with ghosts, right? We'll say. And then the next year it's zombies. Everything is zombies. There's a Hallmark story about zombies falling in love, right? Like all the way down to the scary zombie stuff. There's always trends, and that happens in music. That happens in all different type of art forms. So for anyone to say, oh, look, they're telling you what's going to come because suddenly all artists are using the color red in their background. Red is also the color of our first chakra. It's also the color of safety and security and sexuality. So if someone's using the color red, other than the fact that they just look good in that color or they like it, maybe it's on brand with whatever their album's about. I mean, not everything needs to be this deep, giant, sorry, David, rabbit hole, even though that's your technique.
I love it.
That everyone's making it to be. That doesn't mean that we ignore things, right? So in the 30s, when on the radio they did the War of the Worlds and they were reading it, people did not understand that that was a fake radio show. They thought the world was literally being invaded by aliens, and people started freaking out.
Yeah.
And then people, governments and entertainment started to understand that in order to do their due diligence, they really had to make sure that people understood this was entertainment in advance. And then you fast forward all these years till whenever the Blair Witch came out, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, they had an amazing marketing campaign, right? Like,
Yeah, they did.
literally, I did. I mean, I know I went and I was like, we got to go search for these people. Like, they're
Well, yeah,
lost in the
they
woods.
hid those people away until the movie came out. They just hid them away.
They did.
Yeah.
Remember.
And their marketing campaign was amazing because they
Yeah.
made it look like this is lost footage from these hikers. This is an incredible thing. We put it together. And, I remember seeing it in the theaters and was like, let's go to the woods and go find these folks. I'm thousands of
Yeah.
miles away from wherever it supposedly was, but I was on my way. And then found out, no, it was just entertainment. It's fake. Really well done. But that also started stirring up people, where a couple other entertainers got the idea that this was really cool. So they started putting out these things called faux documentaries. They're basically fake documentaries.
Right.
And there was one about a mermaid. There was one about a city in, I don't know, somewhere, I think like Ohio area, that supposedly was shut down by the government. And these kids go in and they see this Wendigo thing, and then they all end up getting murdered. Remember, it was like a Halloween special or something. And people really thought that that happened. And I actually went out and bought the book because I thought that it happened. I wanted to read more on it. And then, it comes and it's clearly fiction. So I totally went on a tangent with everything that I'm saying. But the reason why I'm going here is because there's a bit of mystique and wonder in the world, even if it's not all spiritual, right? There's still things that happen in our world today that are weird. Whether you're going, is it a cryptid or spiritual or religious or whatever, there's still mystique. I mean, there's things that we don't even understand or know about our own brains and our DNA. So there's still wonders, even if you don't believe in God or you're not going to church every Sunday. That being said, personal responsibility and accountability for ourselves and on a larger scale is so incredibly important, and somehow gets so incredibly lost. And especially when some people are going through spiritual awakenings, which, do you like my little caveat there? Because I was getting there. So Deborah, obviously you ended up having a spiritual awakening when your father passed. You had this moment that you understood innately, okay, I just had a premonition. You felt like your father came to you and basically told you, like, hey, ignore what I told you and, go with your beliefs. And you had a ton of different beliefs to explore and to get to the point that you're at today, which is where you actually work with people who have had paranormal experiences, especially ones that freak them out. And in order to help them process not only the trauma, but also to figure out why the experience happened. And best part, what is it trying to teach you and where do you go from here? And you actually do, mentoring, and you also help with like mediation and counseling with paranormal groups. And I could tell you, I've been in a couple squabbles, well, not me directly, but known a couple different paranormal groups that refuse to do proper protection and end up going out into the field and something is afflicting them, and then the whole team is at odds. So they're, people don't necessarily understand why there would be like mediation for a paranormal group, but it happens more times than I think people want to admit. And there's Deborah for that, which is wonderful. And you do fabulous tarot card readings.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I do. I don't know what to say.
I know that I had a tarot reading from Deborah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was fantastic because I was driving again. I was driving, and she was reading it out, and it was really a lot of positive stuff, and a lot of it made a lot of sense to me. Like she was picking on certain things. There was something going on in my life at the time. She picked up on that, and she said that the cards she was pulling were really good, positive things that are coming down the line, and it aligns with what I'm working on, which is really amazing. I was just really amazed and impressed. She did a great job. Fantastic.
She does do a great job.
Yeah.
And that gets me on over to you, David, because, okay, I just have to back up and explain our backstory because I think it's adorable and it's super cute and it makes me laugh to this day. And I think you're a fantastic, fabulous person and you make me smile. So thank you. So I, people, you know, people follow me on Instagram. I follow back if I can see that it's like not a scammer account trying to get me to buy their sexy pictures or whatever it is. I probably have like 50 of those accounts following me, which is great. Thanks so much. Hope my message gets through. Um, so I get a message one day from Dayvid, and I knew that he had been on podcasts because a couple of the podcasts he was on, I follow them too. So I'd seen his name and seen his stuff and been following each other. And he reaches out and he's like, "Hey, heard about you on Tommy's show from Let's Get Freaky, and I thought I'd reach out. Could you do a quick check on me to see like if I've got any oogly booglies going on?" I get these requests a lot, so no problem. So given the deets, I need you in a place where you're sitting down, feet are on the floor. And once you're there, let me know and I'll come in. I need about like a minute or two and then I'll be done. So he lets me know when he's available to do that. And I do my little thing, come out, let him know, here's what I saw. Nothing too much to be too worried about, but here's my little breakdown. And off I go with my day. Little do I know that he's not only an atheist, but a total skeptic. And his whole thing on social media is to post paranormal and spooky videos. So
Yep.
it's quite the dichotomy he's got going there.
I freak him out and then I send him to Deborah so she can fix him.
So we have our little tete-a-tete and my part's done. So off I go. And about a week later, I get this message, "Hey, you did this, quick check for me last week. I was wondering if you could answer a couple questions." And then comes the question, which is like 3 pages I have to scroll of questions.
Yeah, I had a lot of questions.
And I was like, I normally don't do this, but you caught me at a really good time right now. I think instead of like writing you an essay back, why don't I just call you and we get on the phone? So we get on the phone and I'm trying to answer question 1, which is basically like, how did you do that and see what you saw? And I just kind of always assume, which I know it's not good to assume, but I always go into everything with the baseline assumption that you know who I am, what I'm capable of, and I know who you are, right? And I realize now that not everyone does that, and that's fine.
Nope.
So so I'm trying to explain a little bit, and then Dayvid basically stops me and he's like, "Let me just stop. I've never had an experience like this ever." And I basically was super religious, and then I read the Bible front to back, and I became an atheist. And I've had a lot of different psychics reach out to me before, and they've given me readings and done this and that. And nothing that like you couldn't throw a dart and eventually hit something, right? And then you did what you did, and I can't wrap my mind around what you did because I felt it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah.
Yep.
I don't understand. Like, well, yeah, of course you felt it because I went in your energy space. It's like me coming over and sitting on your lap, basically. Like you're gonna feel something. And then you basically explained to me how it is messing with your mind.
Yeah.
And then the whole atheist thing, and that it just cracked me up. I think I snorted laughing on the phone with you. Because to me, it's just such a backwards way of how things normally work. But you're so sweet and you're so endearing. And I'm extremely happy that I got to be part of your journey in some way, shape, or form. But what was that like for you? Because I
So
didn't realize I messed with your head that bad.
it would not have messed with my head if I didn't feel it. I think, but the stuff you told me about it was spot on. It was really spot on. And I'll be honest, and I've already talked about this in several, and I asked your permission before I did that. But on several podcasts where I was a guest, I brought you up and I explained the whole thing because it's not something that someone like me would experience, especially going from religious to not believing anything. I mean, there was a point I didn't believe in souls at all. I didn't believe in karma at all. I was done with it all. It's like I took myself and emptied everything out, and there was nothing left. And that's just what I was dealing with. And I can say that, and I'm going to be honest with you here, and I hope I don't offend you at all. But when you told me, because I saw the show and I thought you did great, and I reached out to say I thought you did a great job. And yeah, because I was listening to it on the plane to Virginia, from San Antonio to Virginia, and it was like, man, that was great. I'm going to reach out and just say hello and introduce myself and whatnot. And when you said, I need you sitting down, you can't be driving, you cannot be walking, and I was thinking to myself, what the heck is she talking about? Why can't I walk and why can't I drive? You said, I need you to have both your feet on the ground. I was like, okay, both my feet. And then you said, this is what blew me away. It was like, I'll see you in a minute. And I thought, and I read that and I thought, what? You'll see me in a minute? You don't even know where I'm at. You don't even know where I'm at. How are you going to see? And I honestly, this is what I said to myself. I said, see you in a minute. All right. And I just continued with my conversation.
You rolled your eyes. You know,
I did. I was like, I'll see. Okay, sure. See you in a minute, buddy. And I dismissed the whole thing. Honestly, I did. Honestly, which made it even more amazing to me when a minute later I started to vibrate, and it was very light at first, but then it started to get very strong, and I was like, I was sure I could get up and walk, but I knew that. My mind kept saying, you're vibrating at a higher frequency. That's what I kept hearing my mind tell me. You're vibrating at a higher frequency. It's a higher frequency. Something's happening. And for 5 minutes, I didn't know what the hell was happening to me. I thought, am I having a heart attack? What is going on? I don't get it. And then I get a message from you saying, okay, I'm done. I'm going to write out what, blah, 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 this and that. And I was like, what the hell? That was her? And slowly the vibration started to get smaller and smaller over like 5 minutes. And I was able to talk about it. And I was telling my girlfriend about it. I was telling my stepson and my stepdaughter about it. I was like, it is the most bizarre thing. If it didn't happen, I would never have believed it, ever. And you sent me your message, right? And there was 4 points, I think 4 or 5 points. Those 4 points. And bam, you were just hitting it. You were just knocking it out of the park. This and that, and your energy, and you have way too much energy. And I do have way too much energy. That blows my mind when you said that, because, my girlfriend, she likes to go to bed at 9, and I don't, I go to bed with her because, I want her to sleep and all this. But I could be up for hours afterwards if I wanted. I could do all sorts of stuff. I could be, losing my mind. But you hit it. You hit it with everything you said, and I was left kind of with my jaw on the floor on it, and mainly because I felt it. I felt you. How did you even? And so I was like, okay, wait a minute. I need to know how she did it. I need to know how she found me. Is it GPS on this stuff? I need to know because I don't see how you can just find me. I'm not even at home. I'm somewhere else. And it was very, yeah, that's why I drafted all these questions. I was like, I'm gonna find out about this stuff. And I shot them over to you a week later because I just had it, and you were so gracious to answer. Thank you so much for answering my question.
Of course.
I hope I didn't come across as a crazy person, but
No, not at
you're
all.
you are amazing, and you are my spiritual advisor now. That's what I call you now. And
Aw.
I'm so grateful that you came into my life, and it really an interesting time. I feel like I don't know if you've ever seen Fight Club. Do you know the very end where the buildings are crashing down and he's holding her hand? He said, "You've entered in a very interesting time of my life." That's exactly how I felt, how I feel
Perfect
about it.
meme for
So
that.
that was awesome. Thank you. We've since done some stuff, and it's been very interesting to me. I mean, opened my mind even further, and it's already open. You just broke it open. So yeah.
Well, you first of all, you found me. And, you know, again, I'm very small, I'm very obscure. Um, after we had talked and you had asked to share the experience with me when you were going on a couple podcasts, I, I got really excited because there was one that you're going on. I hadn't heard of it before, and it sounded like it was going to be a cool show. And I'm I'm doing something at home. It was like something arts and craftsy, right?
Mhm.
And here I'm listening to Dayvid tell the story, and I'm like, oh, that's so sweet. That's warms my heart. And then he goes, she doesn't even have that many followers. Like, she has hardly anybody on her channel, like nobody on her socials. And I think I fell out of my chair laughing so hard. And I remember I told you, I messaged you, and I was like, I think that was my favorite part. And you were like, oh my God, did I offend you? And I was like, no, this is actually how I'm set up. And you were like, well, wait, did I do something wrong then? I'm like, no, people who are meant to find me find me because I am obscure. I mean, I had somebody 2 weeks ago who we were standing together, and they pulled up YouTube, put in JJ Rose 777, all one word, and nothing came up. They
Hmm.
had to put in space channel and then space something else, and then finally I just had to send them the link.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's not like, you can, put in psychic or whatever and I pop up. Absolutely not. I don't. But I love when I connect with new people at those perfect times. And Deborah, I ended up meeting you because of Dayvid. And that was such an amazing conversation because you basically reached out, was like, I just need someone to bounce ideas off of. And I was like, oh, I'm game for that.
Yeah,
And yeah, and then we had fun playing tarot card readings.
we
I can
did.
say you're actually, when you told me that people find you, they're gonna find you. I told a lot of people. I told my
Mm-hmm.
girlfriend, I told my best friend, I was blasting you out, you know. And I told Deborah, like I said, I told Deborah, she right away she was like, I'm gonna reach out. And she did. I was like, okay, great. But a lot of these other people, you're right, they weren't ready or not ready or something.
Well,
Something is bizarre.
what was really cute is that one podcast that you were on. I won't say the person's name because I don't want to call them out in any negative way. And it's not negative and it's not shade at all. But
Mhm.
I you and I, we actually had to get on the phone because you were a little confused as to what I was explaining of, like, people find me when they're supposed to. I'm obscure for a reason. And so I had to explain that a little bit to you. And I said, remember when you were telling your experience about me to the podcaster? And you were like, yeah. And I'm like, remember how almost immediately they changed the subject? It was
Yeah.
almost like they got instant ADD and they didn't hear
Yes.
anything that you said. And, not to toot my own horn, but like the part you were talking about with me was a pretty cool part of your story. Like it was one of
Yeah.
those kind of pivotal parts that you're giving an experience. And normally on a paranormal type of podcast, they're all about the experience. And I issue not, there's another podcast group, and they were being interviewed on another show, and they've worked with me. And I'm in this very odd way part of their story. And so they're being interviewed, and they literally bring up, yeah, and that's when the psychic came in, which is like when their story goes from cool to like, huh? And like paranormally, right?
Yeah, right, right.
And the podcaster who was doing the interview literally at the point goes, you know what, guys, we've got to shut this down. My studio is super hot right now, and I'm like broiling to death, but I love talking to you guys. I'll talk to you later. At that moment. And I'm not saying this is not with any ego. It makes me laugh. I know some people are probably thinking, like, well, how are you? You know, this is a terrible business opportunity if no one's able to talk about you. But to me, it's spirit in action. And you're right. I've had people who will shout my name from the rooftops, and maybe one or two people will reach out, and that's it. And I've had other people who are friends of mine who've said, I've listened to you 3 or 4 times and I have no clue what you've said, whether it's an interview or, you know, one of my YouTubes, etc. And it's set that way for a reason, because it's there when you're ready and when you need it. And I'm not for everyone either.
Well, I can
Right?
say that when I was saying that you didn't have that many followers on YouTube, you didn't have that many followers on Instagram, I was trying to say to him that you are not out there trying to make money off of it. You know, to me, that makes you legitimate because you're not trying to make money. You could make money easily. I mean, I would pay you no problem, you know, because it happened. I experienced it. She was there. I know she was there. We're talking across country. I experienced it. But yeah, I was surprised because I was in the middle of it. I was trying to explain to him this happened, that happened. She doesn't have that many followers because I was trying to explain to him that you're legitimate. You're not faking it. You're not out there trying to make that extra $50 just for this talking or whatever it is, you know, you're not doing that. And I was shocked that he went away from it completely. And it was like, what the hell just happened? That's so bizarre. And you know what's interesting is I brought up Deborah too, and he was like, "Oh yes, I know her. Can you get
Yeah.
her to contact me and like low key ask if she would?" And I was like, "Yeah, oh yeah, I'll definitely do that." And so yeah, she does. I would. Did you? I bet she listened to that one. And so I was like, "Oh, so you know, at least I got him to." But yeah, I was very surprised by that because my story is, and let me be very specific here, compelling, very compelling. You know
It's
what
a
I'm saying?
great story. I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So
I
I
mean,
mean, come
especially
on.
with your background of being a non-believer and being such a
Yeah,
skeptic, you know, that
yeah.
uh, and I remember after listening to that when you started talking a little bit about Deborah, and he like triples down on Deborah.
Yeah.
And I messaged her and I was like, hey, you need to give a tarot reading to this guy because he just talked about it on a show. She's like, great, he just reached out. I'm like,
He
oh,
loved it, by the way. I don't know if he told you that, but he loved it. He was so thrilled because he
Really?
really wanted, yeah, he really wanted to ask you, and he wanted me to ask you because he didn't want to ask you. I hate it when I ask people to do things. It just feels weird. I said, no, don't worry. I'm sure she'd be up to it. And you were. And he loved it. And it was cool.
yeah.
That's really nice.
But yeah, I've mentioned it on several 2 to 3 podcasts now. And now I'm with Amanda Goodwin. We're doing
Mhm.
One Nothing together, and that's been great. But that's more true crime than anything else.
It is. It's not exactly paranormal.
No,
But it is a fun true crime. Well, I mean, if you can
Uh,
call true crime fun.
yeah,
Sorry.
you can. It is fun. We make it fun.
yeah, you guys
Yeah.
make it fun. You
Yeah.
guys make it. Mhm.
Yeah. So any other advice or any other ideas that you want to pass along from your experiences? Both of you.
Well, I'll say that it's a journey of the self. So if you are questioning, well, first of all, question everything.
Mhm.
That's what I believe. But if you are questioning either if your religion or atheism, whatever you're questioning, do a little research, do a little reading, do a lot of reading actually. Do a little soul searching. Look within yourself. The answer is going to be there. And it like I became an atheist, and I was an atheist for years, and then someone came into my life, and I changed a little bit, and I started to read this book that was more of a science. It was from a hypnotherapist,
Mhm.
and it opened my mind to the possibility that God is not the gray bearded guy in the sky, but the way I approach it now is I think that every person alive, every being that's alive is a piece of the divine.
Mhm.
That's what I think. And when we die, our spirit goes back to the source. And
Well, it
the
never
reason
left source, but yeah,
what's that?
it never left source.
Never left. Is that why I have so much energy?
Oh,
I
that's a
keep
whole other
drawing,
issue you got
I
going
keep
on there.
drawing from the source. I keep drawing. But the thing is, you know, I was trying to learn to meditate in my 20s, and I was failing miserably. I would try and try, and I'm one of those guys that just is dogged. I don't give up. I want to do it. And
Mhm.
so I'll try and try. And finally, one day I was calm enough to be open. And I was really in like some sort of trance almost. And the next thing I know, I was looking at my body,
Mhm.
and I could see myself from above sitting there. And it wasn't me wording this. So this is what I was thinking. My soul was saying, I'm so glad to be out of that body and that all its damn problems. I can't wait to get the hell away from there. And all of a sudden, I was back. And it was so confusing to me because I was like, what did that mean? I don't understand what that means. I don't get it. And then now that I'm older and I've read this book, and I can see that, we're not we're one, but there's a separate, this is just a body, this is just a shell. And that I feel like I'm going to go somewhere else, and then if I have not learned everything I need to learn, or I need more time, I'm going to come back as somebody else in a different shell, different body. And I really believe that. I really think that's, but do I have any proof? No, I don't have any proof. Can I
Wait,
prove it to anybody? No, I can't.
wait until you start having dreams about your past lives.
I want to do regression therapy. I definitely want to do that because I want to learn about that stuff. I want to learn about who I was. Was I Hitler? I don't know. Was I Dr. Seuss? I could have been. He was a terrible person, by the way. Great stories.
Thank you for that rabbit hole that I'll
You're
now be
welcome. I
venturing
have
down.
plenty. I have plenty.
My God.
Look it up. He was pretty bad.
I'll wait for you to do the compilation video for me. So, with past life regressions, I understand there are people who that's their bread and butter, that's all that they do, right?
Mm.
And I think that there's a time and a place for it. I personally don't feel that knowing what you were in a past life really does much of anything for you unless you're hitting like a wall with something you're trying to heal or work through or figure out, and figuring out where it came from. And like I've been very, very open. I had two times where I had these very specific issues, and I could not for the life of me understand where they came from. There was nothing in this life that would have caused it. I mean, nothing. And tried to look back, are there other family members, something like that? Nope, 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 crossed off everything. So then I did a past life regression on myself for it, which you can do them yourself, by the way. meditation is one way to start. And if you go in asking the question, this is what I'd like to understand where this originated. Can you take me back to when this happened or what the core issue was? You will know it was you, just in a different body in another life. That's pretty much how it feels. And it shed a lot of light. And in one specific issue, it went over multiple lifetimes. And it wasn't that the same thing happened, it was different parts of the same issue happening in different ways. And when I got it, I understood and I was like, oh, this is why I'm battling this because of all these different little parts. And then I was able to heal it, seal it, done. Um, you know, if you're going to go and do a past life regression, like, and you're going to go pay someone for it specifically, and that's the main thing that they do. You got to understand that the majority of people going to them basically just want to hear that they've been someone famous, infamous, or someone in high society. I can tell you from most of my past lives, they were very mundane and boring. Some of them, a lot of them ended awful. Don't recommend, right? But some of them were just fine. But no one noteworthy, no one that you could look up in a history book. I still remember that Unsolved Mysteries where there was that little boy who I think up until the age of like 5 or 6, he remembered very clearly who he was from World War I or II, I forget. Yep. And they actually took him to the house of his wife and some of his family members and friends who had survived. And after he said what he said, and here's this little 4 or 5-year-old boy, right, doing all of this and knowing all these things, it left. And then the little boy was able to just be himself in this life and move forward. So, I mean, there is a lot of evidence that stuff like that's happened. There is a wonderful case of a girl in India that this happened with as well. And she actually went, knew how to even get there. Like, she was 3. She knew how to navigate the streets of a city she had never been to. I mean, India is a pretty big place, right? So to be able to say, like, these little streets that aren't even named and get to this house and to find her ex-husband, basically to say something flippant, and then was like, I'm done. Yeah, it's an insane case. Highly, highly high. I'll have to figure out what documentary it was in, but it was really intense. But stuff like that happens. But just I'm kind of doing this as more of like a PSA with people. Just be careful if you're going to someone and all they're telling you is all the fluff stuff. How is that serving you? I mean, if you really want, go pay a friend $25, go get a drink and have your friend say wonderful, nice things about you. It's cheaper.
Yeah.
It's probably not real.
If they're your friend, hopefully it's real.
Yeah.
Not past life stuff, just nice things about you.
I want to know, like, I know that there's been people who've had pain in certain areas in their body, and when they go to the doctor, they can't find what the issue is, and they'll go to a therapist, like a hypnotherapist, and they'll do that regression, and they'll find, without even telling them what the pain is or what they're there for, they'll find a past life where, for example, this woman was having a very sharp pain right in her chest, but they couldn't find what was wrong with her. Like, she was fine, but for some reason she kept having this pain right in this spot. And so she did the thing, and they did several sessions, and they found that in her past life she was a lawyer. She was a man in Oklahoma, and she was not a successful lawyer. She was not doing well. He was an alcoholic. He was failing at his business, and he decided to take his own life. So he shot himself right here with his own weapon. And so that explained it to her, like, why was she feeling this, because things like that. I just want to know. I don't want to know. I have issues that I feel like I can't really explain. I would love to see if there's something out there, if there's something that explains it, or if I
I
can
do
fix it.
highly recommend everyone listen to your episode on Let's Get Freaky. I will put that in the show notes. Dayvid had a very interesting experience happen, and I won't have you tell it all over again because you did a really good job with Tommy. But you had a really interesting experience with a potential, like, did you stop one timeline and jump into another?
Right. Yeah.
And
So
I highly recommend everyone listen to that because it's a humdinger.
yeah, I mean, living through that was it was a scary time for me,
And
because
you still didn't believe after all that.
I didn't, and things started to happen afterwards. And there's, to this day, I still smell the smoke from that fire, and there's just no smoke anywhere, but I could smell it, and it's very specific to that fire. I don't know. It's just,
You're
I
so
can't.
stubborn. I love it.
Yeah, it won't leave me alone.
Deborah, what wonderful words of wisdom do you have?
Um, I would say understand that the only thing that's constant in life is change, and to give yourself grace. Because I think a lot of us, we tend to be really hard on ourselves um when we're not meeting expectations, whether that be our own expectations, our family's expectations, society's expectations. And I know that one was a really big one for me, especially the being that I had such a big role in my family at the time. I was basically the one who was just trying to carry everything while everything was falling down. And so if you do have the weight of the world, so to speak, on your shoulders, and you're going through these changes and you're questioning, what is life, what is the purpose, where am I supposed to be, what am I supposed to be doing, who am I think that the best thing that you can do is understand that we're not meant to be just one person or one iteration of ourselves our whole lives. We're meant to change, we're meant to grow. That is the only thing that we can say definitively that is true. And to give yourself that grace to be able to do so, and time and the patience, because I think there's another thing where we're sort of, I guess, conditioned that change has to happen quickly, and we need to get places and we need to do things and accomplish things really, really quickly. And you can't undo years and years of conditioning or years and years of indoctrination in like a few months. Like, this is a whole, like, you're just entering a whole new phase in life, and you're entering a whole new process, and it's going to take a whole another set of years for you to get used to this new, set of set of ideas, set of,
Word.
everything. Yeah. So it's just, I think the biggest thing that I would tell anybody going through whatever change, whether it's from a believer to an atheist, or an atheist to a believer, or anything in between, or just questioning, our the normal existential questions or whatnot. Know that things are going to change. It's going to go up and down. And the best thing that you can do is give yourself grace and forgive yourself, and just be compassionate with yourself first. And then everything else can kind of go from there.
And then take that compassion and empathy and roll that forward to other people in your life and exponentially grow it. One of the biggest things that I get from people who are going through spiritual awakenings, whether it's sudden or it's been a while, are there's kind of like a drop off in the learning curve, or things are stagnant for a little bit, and people get so frustrated. And why am I not growing? Why am I not developing? And I said, give yourself a minute to breathe and assimilate all the information and stuff that either you just let go of or just learned, and to be comfortable with it for a minute. Because yes, change is constant, and we're constantly moving, growing, changing, all those things. But when life throws you those little softballs and they're like, hey, take a knee for a couple, a week or a month or whatever, that's grace allowing all that stuff to matriculate into your system, into your being, and also for you to find a comfort level with it. I've known people who have woken up really, really fast. I mean, like warp speed fast. Dayvid, even faster than you. So, um, and it's not comfortable because it's so much that they're begging for it to slow down so they can just figure out what just happened, because their life went from, neutral basically to eighth gear, if there is such a thing. I obviously don't know cars very well, but NASCAR eighth gear, I don't know. And you know, when it happens that fast, there is a reason it's happening that fast, but there always will be a slowdown period. You know, as with anything, when you're called and it's your time, spirit's going to go ahead and it's going to be there. It's going to have the proper people in your life for you. And what I ask of anyone out there listening is, as many people that were there for you, please, 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 can you be one of those people for other people in your life who need someone when they're going through it? Because everyone is at different places of development. And it doesn't mean that you don't have boundaries. It doesn't mean you let people walk all over you. If you need to put people in ice, that's what you do, right? Because we all know that there are some people in this world who will just walk all over your boundaries and take advantage of you. Not everyone is your friend, and not everyone is a wonderful, beautiful, nice person. You guys are, but be that nice person for someone else who is deserving of it, and be that person for yourself too. I love it. I think this is a great place to end, you guys. I absolutely adore both of you. Thank you for coming on here with me and taking the time. And I look forward to seeing what all of us are going to do together in the future.
Can I say two things before?
Oh, David, you say whatever you want.
Grace. Sounds like a fox. Send her my way. That's amazing.
You have a girlfriend? No.
And two, you guys can't see this, and you probably won't be able to see it, but JJ Rose 777 has beautiful eyes. I could not stop staring at them. They're amazing.
Thank you. You're very sweet. Deborah, anything else from the Peanut Gallery?
No, I think I'm gonna let Dayvid just end that one.
You would have told me how great my eyebrows look today, girl.
But they are on fleek. Isn't that what they say now?
Yeah, that's what the kids say.
On fire, of course.
Thank you. Too.
I'm personally a little astounded by your hair color. Like the platinum blonde is it looks very nice with your glowing skin.
Thank
it's
you.
So fetch. It really is.
Oh my God, you said fetch. I love it. Oh my God. On that note, everyone, I love and adore you all. Thank you so incredibly much for taking your time to listen, and go out there and glow and shine.